left is now taking unprecedented steps to condemn anyone who worked alongside or supported President Trump. Here to help us break this all down, New York Times bestselling author of the book December 1941, a great book, historian and Reagan biographer Craig Shirley back with us this morning. Craig, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Rob. Thank you.
My pleasure. You wrote an op-ed on Newsmax.com. I thought this was fantastic. You discussed the recent cancel culture in this country and the desire to blacklist anyone with a conservative voice who may be associated with President Trump. Maybe they work for President Trump. Craig, we've seen this before in this country. We saw it in the 1950s.
We saw it in the 1950s with Joe McCarthy, but we saw it even earlier with the Salem witch trials. These things never work. They always backfire, and they're going to backfire on the left today, going after people who work for Donald Trump. First of all, it's illegal. Second of all, it offends people's it offends people's sensibilities. Is that Joe McCarthy tried it in the 1950s? He was a senator from Wisconsin. He was first a Democrat, then switched to Republican because the hunting grounds were a lot happier there, and then he broke out in 1950 with a speech in Wheeling, West Virginia, in which he charged that there were 200 known communists in the State Department. This set off a wildfire in the United States. Harry Truman set up and took notice, and then later Dwight Eisenhower did, the Republican Party did, everybody did. There were nationally televised hearings on how many communists were actually in the U.S. government.
Yeah.
Problem with McCarthy was that he was not wrong. There were communists in the U.S. government. He just went too far in naming exact numbers.
Well, let's hold on. Craig, let's set it up.
Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez is going to go too far, just as McCarthy went too far.
Yeah, she's already gone too far. So this is just after World War II. All right, we had just defeated fascism. We had just defeated the Empire of Japan. Americans were finally home from a long war, a deadly war, the worst war we've ever seen in world history. We just wanted, we wanted to make sure that's why this Red Scare was such a big deal back then. The early 1950s, Joe McCarthy, I mean, he cost people their jobs, their lives. Ultimately, he cost himself his career. He ended up drinking himself to death. He was dead in, I think, 1955. He was like 48 years old. Right. But he was going after communists, just like right now they're going after conservatives, Republicans, white supremacists, white nationalists, all the same stuff from 60, 70 years ago.
Well, yeah, it's funny they mentioned white nationalists. I'm 64 years old. I've never met a white nationalist in my life, and I've been in national politics my whole life. I doubt you've ever met a white nationalist either. I don't think they exist in America. I think it's a made-up phrase.
I wouldn't know how to identify one.
Neither have I. You can't identify one. I don't think any exists. I think it's just a made-up cause for the left to challenge against. McCarthy was wrong in how far he went. He was not wrong that there were communists in the State Department. Bill Buckley said so at the time, and other national Republicans, Barry Goldwater, others said so at the time. That McCarthy was wrong in that he went too far, but not that he was wrong in that there were communists in the Truman State Department, because there were. Al Hayes, very case in point, was outed by the House Un-American Activities Committee so were the Jews and Ethel Rosenberg, as communist spies who were selling state secrets to the Soviet Union, to Joseph Stalin. There were communists in America. There were communists operating on behalf of Moscow, and McCarthy was simply wrong in that he went too far.
Well, there are Chinese spies here right now in this country.
Yes,
we know Eric Swalwell, one of the impeachment managers, he had a very intimate relationship with Fang Fang.
Spy.
Exactly. Of course, that stuff runs rampant in any successful society. But what was happening then was wrong. Senator McCarthy was wrong. The Senate censured him. I don't think John F. Kennedy was a part of that censure vote, but they censured him, and he ended up, basically, it's history repeating itself. But at that time, the Senate president said this should never happen again. Fast forward to 2020 and 2021, and it's deja vu all over again, as they say.
No, if it was wrong then, and it was wrong then, you're right. It's wrong now. It's wrong for AOC to go after conservatives. And it's even worse in a way, because communism is antithetical to the American experience, whereas American conservatism is part and parcel of the American experiment going back to the founding fathers. And this is just witch hunt of the worst order. And she's not very bright anyway. I don't think she should be judging ideology. I don't think she's very smart or capable in that regard.
I guess what bothers me, Craig, is she's using the term, and Ayanna Pressley, Congresswoman from Massachusetts, I mean, these aren't, it's not like, so Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's she was just elected. Right now, she's a backbencher in the Republican Party. She's not a prominent member of the House yet. AOC, Ayanna Pressley, Ilhan Omar, these are stars of the Democratic Party, and they're using terms like white supremacists to describe other members of the House, GOP members, just a blanket umbrella term. And a couple of years ago, if you called somebody a white supremacist, I mean, you'd lose your job. Now it's just, it's totally acceptable. It's totally okay. It's amazing.
Yeah, I know. It is amazing. And as far as this member of Congress in the Republican caucus, I always thought it was best to leave it to the voters to decide if they wanted this person representing them, and not to leave it to others. Mark Twain once called Congress America's only native criminal class. And he was right about the Congress of his time. He'd be right about the Congress of now. I wouldn't trust the judgment of one member of Congress on pass judgment on another member of Congress.
Yeah, very bizarre.
I'd leave it to the voters.
Yep. All right, Craig Shirley, thank you so much. I always enjoy it. Great seeing you again, Craig.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right, stay with us here on Wake Up America. A lot more to come after the break.